almighty, it's the Sweat Equity Podcast. I'm your host, Law Smith, comedian, handsome, devilishly handsome, with a mullet, the best mullet in Tampa Bay. Sitting here with me is my co-host, Alliance Per, that is Caleb Fuddy.
Woo!
Wow.
How's it going?
Wow,
How's it going?
You just shocked everybody's ears.
We're off the charts this morning, brother.
That just went outside of the zone of recording. That's how loud that was to get your Ric Flair on.
That's a 3-cup of coffee Ric Flair right there. That's what that is.
This is Sweat Equity Podcast. Subscribe, rate, review. That's the cheat code on iTunes to get us up the rankings. I appreciate all the good love we've been getting back from Ray Roa's podcast episode last week. And, you know, I've had a lot of – I should write these down. If I was a professional, I'd write them all down before we get started. But I try to do it off my stone boozy memory, and it's not always great.
It's a little foggy this morning.
So I appreciate all the love, and we have a lot – I'm really excited about a lot of the guests that we have going forward. But I'm excited currently right now to bring in our guest, Greg Wolf of Street Laced. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me here today.
For those from the Tampa Bay area, you may recognize him as Third Leg Greg.
Yes, sir.
And so you've been on air. I mean, give us your background. You
Sure.
obviously, before we got started, I could hear you on the mic, and it's like, oh, this won't be nearly as bad as when we have a website developer on that you're trying to goat. Like, come on.
No doubt.
Speak into the mic.
Yeah.
Right in the dick.
For sure.
Hole where the urethra might be if this was a penis. So what's the story? I can already tell you have a motor, which is interesting. So I'm already interested. I already have a man crush. What's the haps?
Good to know. Well, I mean, if you really want to go back to where it all started.
That's where we want to start.
Okay, so I moved down to Florida in 1992-93 from the Maryland, D.C. area. And the reason we moved to Florida was my father, the summer before my senior year, my dad wanted to get me motivated to get my grades up to go to college.
Okay.
And this is actually, let me rewind that. That was actually the summer before my junior year. And to get me motivated, Pop said, look, I want you to write down any college that you've ever wanted to visit in your entire life. And I was like, any college? He said, any college within reason, Greg. And so I made a list, like Florida, Miami, Georgia, North Carolina, Chapel Hill, just, the schools that I'd seen on TV, college basketball, whatever. And so I made a list.
What year is this?
This was 91.
91, okay.
And so Pop said, look, we're going to go on a road trip this summer and for 2 weeks, and we're going to visit all of these schools because I want you to see what is out there, and I want you to get motivated to get your grades up so that you can attend one of these schools.
That's cool.
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
And we did. We went every school that I wanted to. We went to pretty much every college in Florida. I mean, literally from Gainesville all the way down to Miami and back. And for whatever reason, I fell in love with USF. And I think it was probably because of the proximity of Busch Gardens across the street.
Wow.
The brewery across the street.
Yeah.
The girls, the fact that there was a beach close by, just the Tampa Bay area, there was a lot to offer, and I gravitated towards it. And when we got back, my dad said he thought it was going to be Miami. He thought for sure it was going to be Florida State. And I told him, I said, it's really USF, Dad. It's a school that I really just felt that was the spot for me. And sure enough, that got me motivated to get my grades in order, and got my grades to a point my junior year where I was applying to get in. And sure enough, I pretty much got into every school I applied at. And my dad said, listen, I'll make you a deal. You get into USF, he goes, I'm willing to pack it up and move down to Florida. And I was like, really? He goes, reason being, it saves me and your mother money by allowing us to get in-state tuition, right? To go from Maryland to pay out-of-state for a Florida school, too much money. So he did that. He built a house in Newport Richey at the time, which, let's go back to 91 Newport Richey. Yeah. Nothing's out there. Which was a drab.
For those outside the area. So about half the people that listen are here and half the people are outside of the area. It's I'm trying to think of how to explain it. It's one of those, if you look at, like I was watching The Big Short the other night.
Yes.
You know how they go to Miami and it's like it's these dead developments.
Correct.
It wasn't even that yet.
It
wasn't
really
even the dead developments yet. It was
old people and rednecks in that mix. I mean, that was pretty much all there was in Newport Richey.
But cheap land.
Cheap land.
And it's where One of the big gangsters used to hang out. Capone? Or,
no, Trafficante.
No, well, that one, I don't even bring that name up on the podcast.
Yeah. We're going to edit that out.
That shit's still alive, man. No,
that's just bad juju
one
of
the old Chicago guys.
Okay.
Like, it used to be like the haven back in the day.
Yes.
For people that came down from New York or Chicago, real gangster shit.
Still is, man.
It probably is.
It probably is.
We'll skip right over that.
Yeah.
So, anyways, the cool
this
thing
will be our
was,
last episode of Sweat Equity.
you guys know now why. The cool thing is he found a high school development there in Newport Richey that didn't have a senior class, because that was the one thing I had to do, was give up my senior year with every kid that I had grown up with, all my friends, to sacrifice my senior year.
Yeah, that's wild.
It was wild, but the cool thing was there was a brand new high school in Newport Richey called River Ridge, and they did not have a senior class. So they literally pooled kids from all the surrounding schools to make a senior class. So I wasn't the only new kid, which was great.
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal. Ended up graduating with honors, ended up going to USF, and which was a great experience for me. And while at USF, I got my foot in the door in radio as an intern for the Hooters on the Radio show. They actually had a show back in the day on 760 WBDN, which was actually in the same building at that time in Feather Sound, which is right by the water, where 98 Rock, they were in the same building. This was an AM station that was brokered radio, which means people could pay. There was medical programming, kind of like they have here in Tampa now on HNZ, where you have doctor programs, medical programs. They pay for that airtime. And so this station was no different. However, their morning show, the Hooters on the Radio show, was very much like a normal, crazy, wacky morning show. They had Lynn Austin, who's the original Hooters girl, Brenda Lee. There was a girl, Julie, on it.
Sounds amazing.
It was awesome. They had their producer,
The original
Spaniard,
Hooters
the
girl?
original Hooters
How
girl,
old
Lynn
is
Austin.
Hooters?
She's, up there in age now, but she was that original poster girl. Like, if you go into Hooters, you see her when she was in Playboy.
But I'm just thinking,
I feel like beef jerky skin in those pantyhose, man. Like those weird shiny pantyhose.
I'm trying to think of Greg as a
Young kid.
Freshman in college.
I was
high
actually
school senior
at
When
that
was
time.
this?
No, at that time I was at USF, so that was probably my junior going into my senior year. Actually, at that time.
I mean, I'm just picturing Greg sitting in there with all these Hooters girls doing a radio show.
I was the intern, though. You got to remember, I was the bitch boy. Like, literally, the whole and here's how I even got in
You're
there.
taking your punches, but you're in the fight, man.
I was.
Right?
And the funny this is how I got there. My brother at the time was working at a restaurant, and a lot of these radio shows still to this day do features where you have a restaurant come in, they bring you food, you talk about them, they do a deal or a coupon offer. And so my brother's restaurant got chosen by them to be featured. So he called me and said, Greg, you want to come down to this radio show with me? I was like, sure, I'll take the ride. And when we went down, I was mesmerized, again, kind of like you guys with this podcast, even though their studio was half the size of the room that we're sitting in. But when you hear it on the air, it sounded like larger than life.
Sure.
And you come in and you're in this small box. I'm like, this is the show? And I was mesmerized by that. Well, the girls that day were talking about why men don't like to shop. That was the topic. Lynn Austin was dating, or she was married to Daryl Dalton. She was married to a professional baseball player. So that's how they kind of got on their topic. Excuse me. So I came from a family where my mom was in fashion retail. She worked for Macy's. She worked for Saks Fifth Avenue. So we were around that our whole lives. So we loved to go shopping for school clothes, new gear. So when it came time for us to come on and talk about the food, I just opened my mouth, which I probably shouldn't have, because we were there to talk about the food. And I just said, excuse me, can I ask you guys why you think that not all men like to shop? Because that's not necessarily true. So they were like, who the hell is this kid coming in, bringing up his own, mojo? And so there was like this natural banter between me and the girls. And after the break was over, they said that was really good. And I said, I really enjoyed that. That was awesome. So do you guys have interns or anything here? And they're like, well, I don't know. We've never had an intern. It's AM radio, so we've never had an intern. So I went to the GM and I said, I would love to be an intern for this show. And he was like, well, you need to go back to your university, find out from your professor, can you get college credit for this? And I followed the steps, and sure enough, I got approval and became an intern on their show. And what that meant was, you're going to be our bitch boy. You're going to go get our coffee. You're going to go wash my car. You're going to go do laundry. I'm like, that's not really what I signed up for, but I get it. That's part of paying your dues.
Yeah.
And one day they woke up and said, you know what? We have an intern. We need to go send this guy out to do stuff.
Yeah.
Like, why do we have a morning show? We have it. So the first thing that they ever sent me to do was I had to go to Walgreens and pretend that I had my wife on the phone. And I didn't know why I was going there or what I was doing. And they just said, just go there and call us when you get there. So I did, and the whole premise was you're going to pretend you have your wife on the phone, and we're going to send you to go get really embarrassing things. And so literally I'm going down the aisles, I'm getting like Preparation H, and I'm just getting really embarrassing Vagisil and just like terrible stuff. And so they tell me to go find Maintain cream. And I was like, what is that? And they said, go ask the pharmacist. So I said, go to the old man pharmacist who was there. I said, do you guys have Maintain cream? And the pharmacist is like, Maintain cream, what is that for? And I'm like, honey, what is that for? And she's like, it's to maintain wood. And I said to the guy, I'm like, it's to maintain wood. And he goes, I don't know if we have that, but we have a small hardware section over there. You may want to look for it. So it was hilarious. And sure enough, like I ended up running out of the store. I don't remember what other items were. It was so long ago. But I ended up running out of the store screaming I was having a hemorrhoid flare-up and my ass was on fire and literally ran out of the store. So that was kind of the stuff they started to send me out to go do. The most memorable 2 bits that I ever did, which is ironic to where I'm at today. The first one was when Raymond James Stadium was being built, and the big news at that time was the taxpayers had to pay this half-cent tax in Tampa to help with from Houlihan Stadium, which then became Raymond James Stadium with the new development.
Yeah.
So
it's supposed to be split with like education costs as well, right?
Thank you, Merritt Chalura.
There you go.
That's my best friend's dad.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we're talking 96, 97-ish because it opened in 98.
It was like 96.
Yeah.
And so they said the big news that day was they had groundbreaking. So the next day they're like, we're going to send you out there as a taxpayer in Tampa. We're just going to send you out there to start digging. So I'm like, okay. So they're like, my dad was in construction, so I went and got his hard hat and a flannel and a shovel and literally went out that morning to where they had the tent set up where they had the chairs from the groundbreaking. It was all fenced off, so I had to hop a fence, which you can see where this is going. I had to hop a fence, and I literally had one of those earpieces back with my cell phone, so I had the earpiece in, I could hear the show, and they're just like, go ahead, start digging. And so literally I started digging. They kept checking back in with me every like 20 minutes, and I'm literally digging, and you could hear the sounds of the shovel going into the ground. Sure enough, didn't take long before a security guard comes up to the trailer. Security guard comes over.
Hut.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah.
No, it was.
It probably was.
I don't know how I know that. I don't know why my memory's that shitty. Like
that was one of the biggest security companies in this area at the time.
Yeah.
They did everything on Harbor Island. They did everything.
Because it was called Whacking Hut, and there's a lot of dick jokes like right there. I think that's why.
Probably was.
Okay.
So this security guard comes over to me and he's like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm just working, brother. I'm here to work. And he was so confused. And he was like, well, what union are you with? Or what? They already had this ceremony yesterday. I'm
like,
look,
the
man,
South, man.
I just said, look, man, they told me to come dig. So I'm digging, and there's this exchange between me and this guy. And not that I was getting cocky, but I was getting cocky.
Sure.
And I was like, I'm a radio guy. He didn't know that. But sure enough, 5-0 rolls up. And I panicked and started running. And so you can hear on the radio me just booking, and the cop chases me down, sure enough, and for trespassing, and puts me in the back of the cruiser. And
are you still on the phone with the show?
Yes.
That's
so
amazing.
the producer
Holy
gets
shit.
on because the show's freaking out now. They're like, "Oh crap, we just got our intern arrested. This is our fault."
No,
So
they're not. Like ratings are going through
the roof.
People are
Like, people are
calling
loving
in.
it.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
you got to time out in a second because it's like you got to remind people that like doing bits in the morning,
Right.
Big deal.
Big
Like,
deal
in the
in radio.
90s. It was huge.
Huge.
It's
Yeah.
like that's what you had to do to compete, and like it's not like it is now where it's
No.
like
Digital.
Well, it's digital, but it's so formulaic. Radio now is
Yep.
horrible because it's so formulaic because it's only 3 players own 95% of the radio stations in the country.
Yep.
So it's like CBS, Clear Channel, and
Cox.
Yep. It's those big 3. It's a big oligopoly. They don't want to do anything risky, so it's almost collusion to a degree because you can't really start a radio station because the barrier to entry is so high and it's kind of dying. So you got to factor all this stuff in when you're thinking about you're doing these bits.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s when you used to buy CDs
Right.
of bits from your favorite radio
True.
DJ.
I mean, I think the 93.3 here, they would have
Yes.
like the crotchety
MJ,
Christmas calls,
yep,
right? And that would be like a
MJ.
CD they'd sell.
Correct.
Yeah.
Same with Bubba. He did all sorts of bits that people would buy those CDs because they wanted to relive them and enjoy them.
So you're in the back. Now, let's go back because you're in the back of the police
Cruiser,
car
yes.
with a cell phone.
That's attached earpiece. So the cop just put me in there to hold me there. And sure enough, the good thing was I did have a Hooters on the radio T-shirt on under the flannel. So when the cop came back and asked me, what are you doing? And then I finally, took the earpiece out and explained to him, look, this was a radio bit. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to trespass. They sent me out. I'm basically pleading my case with him. The good thing was he was a fan of the show.
Nice.
So he let me go, and I said, listen, I don't want you to let me go just yet. I want them to be freaked out. So the GM gets on the horn. He knows he's in on it, knows that, listen, he's okay. He's not getting in trouble. But the show didn't know. So the show still thinks that they got their intern arrested. So sure enough, they're like, crap, we're going to get fired. Like, he's going to jail. So I literally waited the rest of the show and let them muddle in it. And sure enough, I kicked down the studio door right before the end of the show. I said, got you, mother effers. I got you.
Really?
Yeah,
Nice.
so that was great. So
That's huge.
that was a
man.
huge one. And then the second huge one was when the Ice Palace was being built. And the news that day
This
was...
is the hockey stadium.
Yes,
in
for Tampa Bay Lightning. They had just completed the first ever ice on the ground floor at the Ice Palace. And that was the big news of the day. So they're like, you're going to go down to the Ice Palace, and you have to do whatever it takes to get center ice. We're not giving you any information. You can go down there, whatever you got to do, but you got to get center ice before the end of the show.
Wow.
How the hell am I going to do that?
Right.
It's a construction zone. I don't have any credentials. So I literally borrowed my buddy's hockey stick, and I went down to the arena and got to security and said, I'm here to see Phil. And they're like, excuse me? And I'm like, I'm here to see Phil. I have a tryout. And they're like, Phil who? And I said, Phil Esposito. Like, I'm here. He told me to come down. They're like, well, they're like, the offices for the team are in downtown. Like, this is still a construction zone. So this is not this. You need to go down there. And I was like, well, I'm just going to stay here because he told me to come here. So they're like, you're more than welcome to sit over there.
You're a bigger dude. You could pull this off a little bit.
That's what I was just thinking. I was like,
you could have been a hockey goon.
Yeah,
like, you
I don't think
defender.
I looked quite like this back in the late 90s. But so sure enough, it wasn't working. I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to think, what the hell am I going to do? And I go back outside, and I see a line of guys with construction, like with equipment and stuff, kind of making their way in through the back compound. And again, still my dad's hard hat in the truck, grab the flannel, put it on, and try to blend in with the guys. And it actually worked. I got in with a row of guys going into the building because I had a construction hat on. They didn't check ID. I literally got myself in. Now I'm in the building.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean you're going to get on the ice. So I go to the Zamboni guy, and I go up to him and I explain. I said, look, I'm with Hooters on the radio show. I have to do whatever it takes to get center ice. I don't need a lot of time. I just have my disposable camera. I got to take proof of this, and I got to call the show and let them know that I'm on center ice. So after convincing him, he said, I'll just hire you as my assistant for the day. I was like, are you kidding me? You're really going to do that? He's like, I will do that for you for the radio thing. Awesome. Call the show back. I'm like, you mother effers, I'm getting it done. I've yet to not complete a mission you've sent me on, and I'm sure as hell not going to stop today. So they're like, what do you mean? I tell them, hey, the Zamboni guy said he's going to hire me for the day. They're like, we want to talk to this guy. I put him on the phone, and they're doing everything they can to detract him from letting me get on the ice. They're telling him I'm all off my medication. He snuck himself into the building. Don't believe anything. And I see his facial expressions go from this elation to he's worried.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, what did they tell you? I'm like, whatever they're telling you is crap. He's like, well, I don't know now. I might lose my job. And I'm like, listen, give me 5 seconds to go out to the ice, and I'll get off and get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, man, they open those two doors, and I literally call them. I say, you guys ready? They're like, what? And I literally dove onto the ice and just went down the middle of the ice and stood there. And I'm like, you mother effers, I just did it. I am standing center ice. I took a picture with the camera. I said, I'm done. I'll get the pictures developed.
Some of the original selfies.
I was about to say, man.
Original selfie.
You couldn't see what they looked like.
Nope,
You were
no
hoping
clue.
they looked
Hoping
good.
it came out
You had to
good.
go to the Shutterbug stand and hope to God it comes out.
It was amazing to be one of the first people in Tampa that wasn't a employee of the team or a construction person or whatever to actually do that and stand there center ice and look around that arena was amazing. And now fast forwarding all these years later, 20-something years later, here I am, the actual in-stadium host for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was mojo. I got touched by
That's
the hand of
crazy.
the hockey gods, but that's kind of how I got my start in radio.
Well, we know how you got there because look, you've already told two stories about how you look. You're maybe naive, when you're younger, but you can use that as an advantage in a lot
Absolutely.
of ways. And so you have the mindset of going, I'm just going to figure
Make it
this
done.
out. Yeah,
Get it
and
done.
if I fail, that's fine. But I'm going to try 2 or 3 different ways.
Correct. To
Or
make it happen.
I feel like a lot of people would get, if they got their dick knocked in the dirt that first time,
They're going to be out.
they'd be like,
Yeah, it didn't
well,
work.
sorry guys,
Yeah.
you guys sent me on a bad mission.
Right.
Yeah.
And blame them. And
Right.
it's like, no, you're the intern. You're the do boy. You're
Yep.
supposed to be out there doing the zany stuff for them remotely to earn your stripes, but
Correct.
also be entertaining. And you got to figure out, look, they didn't give you any tools. They weren't like, here's a set of James Bond shit to
Nope.
work with. It was like, go figure it out.
And I did.
And you probably had to pay for your own props. And you had to borrow a hockey
I did.
stick.
I borrowed a hockey stick. Got stuff from Pops. I did whatever I needed to do to get it done. Like
the
you just said,
construction weaving in is almost like an 80s movie.
it was, dude. It really was out of an '80s movie.
Like Ferris Bueller-ish.
100%.
I'm just
So
going to weave in for a half second and just get in there.
See, to me, it's one of those things where you can. It's all about the state of mind, right? So the person listening to that story, they either take it as a comedy or they take it as kind of a little bit of a motivational factor of being like, "Damn, am I willing to do that
to get it done,
to get in and to get into anything? Not just." And radio has that. It has that culture, right? It has
For
that.
sure.
It's fun. It's funny. You get to do those kind of things. I'm sure that. Someone gunning for a job at Raymond James or something isn't necessarily, they're not like, go try to get on center ice. You know what I mean? But I'm sure there are other things. How far are you willing to go?
That's pretty much.
And that's
the
what I love
mindset.
about those stories, man. That's incredible.
So the girls actually gave me the name Third Leg Greg the day that I was running from the cops because they somehow tripped on the fact that, man, he must have had a third leg to get out of there as fast as he did. It's like his Third Leg Greg. And so that's how
Really?
the name.
That's how that name came
That's
about?
how the name came. I know
you
everybody
sure?
else did. Yeah,
I thought it
100%.
was like
You can
have
ask
a
my
big-
girlfriend.
I thought it was that you have a big hog or something.
No, they're like, this guy's got a lot of balls to do the stuff that he does. Really was weird.
I'd say shaft, but
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Balls and
man.
shaft. So yes, that's how the name Third Leg Greg got to me. Was this kid had a lot of balls. He didn't care. He didn't mind breaking the rules to get things done. And he also runs as fast as if he had three legs because when the cops are chasing him, he took off. So that's how the name stuck. And I got my first real taste of radio reality when I showed up for work and the doors were locked and everything had changed. A Spanish radio station had bought out, a Spanish company had bought out that signal, and everybody got booted. Now, mind you, while I was there doing my internship, I learned how to run the board. I learned how to produce a commercial. Like I sat with the production guy who was the producer of that morning show and said, I know they want me to do coffee and go do these crazy bits, but as a college student and now has an interest in the radio side of things, I want to learn everything. And so he really taught me the things I needed to learn. And that led me to go to the GM before the end of my internship and said, listen, I know this is a brokered station. I know how this game works now. I've learned how to run the board. I've learned how to produce commercials. Would you let me have a 1 hour show on a weekend? I don't care if it's at 3 a.m, just so I can understand how to put together a radio show. And he was like, you know what? For your final project, I will give you 1 hour on a Saturday night at 8 o'clock, which was prime time, even on an AM station for me. And he said, but you're going to show me your 1 hour clock. I want to see what is your show about? Who are you going to talk to? Like, I mean, talk radio, as you guys are podcasting, is a lot different than music stations because you only have short talk breaks. 9 times out of 10, you have a sponsor tie-in.
It's usually a plug, yeah.
It's a plug or whatever. So talk radio is a whole lot different when you need to come up with all that content. So he wanted me to map out the full hour. The cool thing is he said, you have that entire hour to do what you want. You want to go sell ads. You've learned how to produce commercials. I'll even let you go out and find your own advertisers and go sell your own ads. And so if you want to make a little money on the side, this is your opportunity. I took that ball and ran with it. I went to every mom and pop shop I could find because I was living in Carrollwood at the time. I found a pizza place, a bagel shop, a consignment store, a Chinese restaurant, and told them, listen, I'm a college kid. I have this project I can work on. For $50, I will produce a commercial for you. Your commercial will play twice during my show. I'll let you approve the commercial before it airs. I absolutely ran with it and got, I think I got 12 people to jump aboard with $50 a pop.
That's great.
And produce my whole show. My show is the Third Leg Greg Show. What is it about? Well, it was about the hip hop, the Tampa hip hop scene, and what was going on in Ybor at the time, like the Ybor update, like what clubs were playing what music, what DJs were there. One of my buddies from USF was actually a production intern for MTV. I'm like, that's a great interview.
Yeah.
I was writing music reviews for the Hive Hip Hop magazine. Let's interview the guy who runs the magazine. So I put together this clock. And the show was terrible. I mean, after all these years later, like
You have tapes?
Oh yeah, I have a tape of it. It was awful, but at the same time, it was an opportunity. And sure enough, the next Monday, I came in to talk to the GM. I said, "Did you listen to the show?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, it was not bad for somebody who's never done their own show before. It was pretty good. You had good interviews. He goes, "But let me ask you a question." He goes, "You had a lot of commercials, and they were all your voice." And I was like, "Well, you said produce your own commercials." He's like, "It was just funny, though, because you'd hear you talk, and then you go to this one commercial you did, the next commercial you did, you didn't have anybody else in the building voice your stuff where you just ran with it, so it was like the Greg Show." I'm like, "Well, that's what it was called, the Third Leg Greg Show." So I said, "Okay, now that my internship is over, I did my show." I said, "Just out of curiosity, again, understanding this is a brokered radio station, if I was to keep that 1 hour slot on Saturday, how much would you charge me?" Because brokered radio is not cheap. But back then in the late 90s, it was affordable. So he goes, "For you, we're just throwing out there shits and giggles." He goes, "I'd do it for $100. So I threw $800 on the table from all the commercials I sold.
Nice.
And I said, "Book me 8 weeks." And
Wow.
he was blown away. He's like, "You're serious?" I'm like, "Is that money green?" And so he goes, "Okay." And so sure enough, I had my own radio show, Third Leg Greg Show. And again, focused on underground hip-hop, local hip-hop. I actually brought in a DJ who literally set up on the windowsill because the room, again, was smaller than this room. He set up we had a live DJ. So I understood what it was going to take to try to entertain and create my audience. This is before social media. I literally had a team come out here on Saturday and Friday nights and hand out flyers to promote my show.
Street team, baby.
Street team, baby.
Yes.
That's where it all kind of started.
Paper that. Yeah.
Papered it. So, so that's how the Third Leg Greg Show started.
So let me go back a little bit because what I'm hearing is kind of, I mean, it's what we try to preach on our podcast all the time, and it's just amazing the story that you have to get to where you are now, and there's still so much more to fill in. It's like it's absolutely incredible. But going back, even thinking of the premise of your show, was that something you were already ingrained in, and something that you already kind of, or did you say, "I know there's a need for this. It's not really the lifestyle I'm living, but it's not being."
No,
met,
it's interesting you touched on that. A huge hip hop fan growing up, even to this day. And Tampa radio at that time in the 90s, all we had was FLZ, and FLZ didn't really play hip hop.
Yeah,
there was
more
no
top 40s.
It was more top 40 pop music. The Stevie B's and stuff like that. The only station in Tampa that would even play hip hop was 88.5. They had a show called the Underground Railroad. It was like 12 midnight to 3 in the morning.
I forgot
with
about
Mad
that.
Lynx and Lil Lou and all those guys, and I gravitated towards that show. Made friends with those guys. But there was that need that there's no mainstream radio station in Tampa playing this music. So even if I have to do it on an AM station for 1 hour, that's what we're going to focus on. But my spin, as opposed to those guys where they're playing national artists, was I want to focus on the local hip-hop scene because, again, I was writing for the hip-hop magazine. I saw that there was a scene, an underground scene, if you will.
Yeah.
But, again, I was like, we need to bring this to the forefront, and that's where I brought in my DJ and said, let's just focus. I brought in local artists to interview them and talk about that. So it was really that was kind of my passion. Like the hip hop world was always my passion, and to have the outlet to expand on that was really kind of the brainchild of it, and which was interesting because shortly after, it was 98, shortly after the station got sold, my show's gone, everybody's gone, is when Wild 98.7 came on the scene. This was in the summer of 98, and that's when that radio station played Wild Thing over and over and over and over again, created such a buzz in the city. Like, why is a station that's all they're playing?
I remember it very well.
Yeah.
I was in 8th grade. I was with Brett Metcalf's dad. We're going out to St. Pete Beach from Tampa in his minivan. He's pounding beers as he's driving, which is fucking
terrible.
Awesome.
It's completely legal back then, man.
I mean,
completely legal.
I mean, it could have been soda, but I don't think they put soda in cases like that.
Just be glad you're getting a ride, all right?
Yeah, right.
So anyway, it probably didn't happen this way because my memory's dog shit. But anyway, I do remember being in the car and we were like mesmerized by Wild at 98 and the promotion they did. They played Wild Thing nonstop for a whole weekend. It was like Memorial Day weekend.
It actually lasted a couple weeks.
Really?
That's it, because everybody was glued to the radio going, when is it going to change songs?
Right. And then, but the bit was they're on a boat.
Correct.
It's a pirate,
Josh and Brian.
It's a pirate radio station.
Correct.
They
took
on a
over
boat.
the signal. Yep.
Yeah.
And Josh and Brian, we're on our dad's boat, bro. And like literally these two stoner dudes who had the entire Bay Area looking for this boat. And the funny thing was they took a picture of a couple guys on a boat with a spray painted sign that said "We're wild" or something, and used that picture to kind of leak it out so that people really started thinking, wow, these dudes really are on a boat. They stole their dad's boat and they're pirate radioing. And it was genius because it wasn't a pirate radio station. It was actually a company called Intercom. It was a group of guys who decided this is how we're going to launch the station. And then if you recall, they started adding one song here and there. It was Master P, Make 'Em Say, and Silky Fine, Romeo and Juliet, and like all these songs that, you're like,
all the good ones,
all
man.
the great
Damn.
songs. So that's how the station kind of
sounds
was
like my
birthed.
wedding playlist coming up.
So I did everything I could to track these guys down. I'm like, man, my CD collection is like fabulous. I need to get these dudes and get them some more music. Come to find out, the research I did, it's this company, Intercom. They're out of St. Pete, and they have big plans to launch this station. They've already kind of leaked it out. And so I actually got to the marketing director. His name is Mark Gullett. And I interviewed with Gullett like 5 times. For some crazy reason, Mark thought I was a spy for FLZ. And the only reason he thought that was because I had prior radio experience in the market. Mind you, it was an AM station, a rinky-dink station, but he had his own show. He thought I was in cahoots with FLZ. Mm-hmm. The guy that I was in talks with, his name was Pete. Pete was his assistant. Pete was like, Greg is a go-getter. You don't understand. This guy is legit. Yeah. You need to bring him on the team. So finally he caved, and he brought me on the promotions team.
Did he have you do some crazy-ass thing?
Nothing, dude. Because back then, literally promotions, all we did was we drove around in a van that was spray-painted. Mm-hmm. We Don't Suck. I don't know if you guys remember the white van.
Yeah.
It was a white spray-painted van that literally said Wild 98.7, We Don't Suck.
I think at that point I was in, I might have just started, I was maybe finishing elementary school. I remember having a conversation with my mom. Listen, just hear me out. I'm having a conversation with my mom, like, I was like, put it on the radio, and kids, they just talk, and you hear about, you start to get into radio, and that was my first, when remembering, like, man, when the radio was just really cool. Right. It was like, man, the radio played all the music, everything. Now it is very formulaic. It is very, it's so, even the hip hop stations are top 40s now, and it's kind of a shame. But back then it was like, oh yeah, did you listen to Wild 8.7? And I listened from the time I went to school. Didn't listen during school, and then as soon as I got home, on my boombox, the whole night. I used to tape the shows on tape so I could listen to them later when shows weren't on, because I had a little Walkman tape player, and I go ride my bike around.
Dedication.
Still listen to it. So
love that.
And I remember telling my mom, like, this is like a pirate radio station, and they're out on this boat, and she's like, what? And she's in media, like she buys and sells media, so she knows like all this stuff. And she's like, I don't think that's really true. And I was like, you don't know anything. I was like, you don't know. These guys are on a boat doing that. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
It was a great launch.
Yeah,
absolutely
was. We're obsessed with pirates in the Tampa Bay.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it made sense.
It made a lot of sense. Yeah.
So I got my foot in the door at Wild in promotions, and that's what I did. And I said, same thing there. I said, once I get my foot in the door, I'm going to sit in with the jocks. I'm going to learn how to run the board. I'm going to learn how to do commercials. And that's exactly what ended up happening. At that time, the only jocks on the station were Orlando, who's still there to this day, Scantman, and Flying Brian. Those were the 3 jocks. Mm-hmm. And I took time to meet with all those guys and sit in, made great friends. We were amazing, like as a group, as a unit. It was a very tight-knit family. And I started, like I said, running the board, started doing overnights to get more experience.
What's overnights for people?
It's literally like midnight to like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, mm-hmm. And just to try to hone my craft. And that led to me doing weekends. And then from that, I became the assistant promotions director because Pete left. And from the assistant promotions director, doing the weekends, doing overnights. I mean, I literally didn't sleep. And what that ended up happening is the night guy, who was Big Mama, I don't know if you remember that, it was a very short stint. Big Mama was not there very long.
Wasn't there like a Big Mama's house or something like that?
No.
No? Okay.
No, different guy.
I thought that was.
That was Martin Lawrence.
It was Big Mama.
That's what that was. That's what that was.
That's exactly what that was. So Big Mama.
It's cool. You get all your black people confused. It's fine. It's whatever.
He ended up getting.
Was that Medea? Medea, right?
Medea. So he ends up getting booted. And they come to me and said, well, we need you to be the bridge over water until we can find a replacement for Big Mama. Now, mind you, at this time, in 99, Wild was huge. And every jock in the country wanted to go work at the night show position at the hottest radio station in the country. What ended up happening was, and again, I would see all these air check tapes and resumes come into Orlando's office by the box load. And all that did, though, was motivate me to, like, let's kick ass. I had my Wild Bunch on the streets every night in a different city in Tampa doing stuff, interacting with listeners.
That's your street team.
And my street team was the Wild Bunch, correct.
Yeah.
Every night I had something for them to do because I'm like, we're going to win this battle by taking over the streets. We have to be visible. We have to be in front of people. That's what's going to win this battle. We're going to crush our competition, and that's what ended up happening. We were in the nightclubs every night of the week, and the ratings where Big Mama had left, they started to dip. And when I took over, they leveled off. So they said, well, let's take our time and find the right talent to replace Big Mama. And the ratings started to go up. And so they said, all right, well, let's, we got a little time to breathe here. And the ratings just kept going up and up and up to the point where they finally said, you know what? Why would we go outside the market when we have somebody who's dedicated to it, who's from this area, who understands the lifestyle, who's now shown it in the ratings? We're sticking with this guy. And they signed me to a 3-year deal, which blew my mind. What a huge accomplishment to go from where I was
to now. How old were you?
20, let's see, I just graduated college. I think I was 21, 22. Now working
That's awesome.
Dude, the hottest radio station as a 22-year-old in Tampa.
Well, there's a lot of things with that. So there's the whole theory of you see a fire, do you go in to take care of it, or do you go call someone else?
Right.
And so you didn't go, well, fuck, I'm going to get boxed out because these resumes are a lot
huge,
better.
Big guys.
You went into
Chicago,
the fire.
Right.
Yeah, you're like, I'll give it the best I can.
Yep.
And you're probably like, if I don't get this,
at least
I'll write notes and I'll go, here's what I won't do the next time.
That, and I'm also getting experience and I'm getting air checks. So if I don't make it here, now I've got a catalog of footage that I can send out, and maybe I can get a job somewhere else. That was my mindset,
reel,
a sizzle reel, if you will. So I was getting content and saving it all. And so, it was really one of those, I'm just going to give it everything I have and see what happens.
And this is what I want to bitch to a lot of people that are 18 to, whenever you have a good back, let's say, anybody like 18 to 28, it's like you've got a lot of time now to hustle to make up for. I wasn't like a smart kid growing up, but I worked a lot because I knew that hustle makes way more out of an employee or out of a successful person than being knowledgeable. I know a lot of smart people, but they can't get off their ass to go do a lot of different things at once. You didn't even know you were becoming an entrepreneur while you were doing it. You just knew that, okay, what do I have to do to get it done? Correct. You don't have to think about it like, I'm going to be this polished entrepreneur one day. This is what I want to do. You're just like, here's what I want to do. If I got to figure out how to sell ads, I'm going to figure out how to sell ads.
Correct.
I get the revenue model. This isn't for free.
Right.
I realized you realize where you are. You weren't like an entitled guy where it's like, hey man, I've been busting my ass.
Right. Give it to me.
It's like
no,
I've been busting my ass to get to here.
Correct.
To do this. So when I have that like a running back, I got a little bit of a hole in between the line. I'm going to take that squeeze and just run 80 yards with it.
So, and with that, what was kind of the motivation at the time? I mean, what was it? Just that you wanted to be around the scene? You wanted to be a part of something? Like, did you?
Yes.
You knew you wanted to be in radio. I think
did.
that was obvious at that point.
Yeah, and you go back to where the whole idea was. The hip hop wasn't here in the market, and now here I am working for a station that's why they came in the market. Wild came into the market because FLZ had dominated so long. And they found the void. I think the issue was people looked at hip-hop music as a black music, a black culture, and Tampa's percentage of African Americans was like in the low percentages. And they're like, it's not going to work. Why do you think that African Americans are the only ones that listen to that music?
Right.
There's a huge Hispanic community here. There's white people love that music too.
All the kids at Gorey Elementary School are listening to it on the ride home, dude.
So,
and taping it, and riding around on their bikes.
So that company, Intercom, which eventually turned into Infinity Broadcasting, which turned into CBS Radio, they understood that. They said, we're going to take the chance, and we're going to go balls to the wall with this. We're going to be in your face. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to be a part of from the jump. And so that's kind of why I gravitated towards it. And once I got my foot in the door and saw the mold and the model of what they were doing, I said, this is absolutely where I need to be. This is why I feel like I'm at home here. And so kicked ass, like for almost 7 years, was the #1 rated night show in Tampa Bay. Destroyed my competition. It's interesting now because the Kane Show on FLZ, which is one of the #1 radio stations or radio shows in Tampa, but also he's syndicated across the country. He was the night guy at the time, and I destroyed him, which is great. Because look at him now, like he's, his radio career is beyond blossom, way past mine. But it was funny to see that I crushed somebody who, at the time was.
To be fair to you, though, I've heard you on the radio for years, so I knew who you were before Caleb was like, "Hey, we have Greg coming on." I was a radio nerd as well, listening as much as I could.
Yeah.
Sure.
Especially the talk.
Yeah.
Because I guess I had an interest in stand-up, so I was always interested in the guys that could be funny on air, because it's a stand-up for me it's half visual as well. So even though I don't move around a lot,
right,
it's still just emoting and just being there in that space where with what you're doing, like Kane's a very Seacresty kind of guy, like very polished, vanilla, never going to take a stance. Seems like doesn't have he's not going to play Master P.
No,
if he has control over that,
correct.
And he's going to be the host that maybe wanted to do some TV hosting kind of stuff. That kind of Seacrest.
And he's great in that role.
Yes.
I mean, but totally different than what we were doing.
I'm not saying he's good or bad. I'm just saying that's
different.
That's the position he wanted to be in.
Correct. And he's doing a great job at it. I love him to death. But we were in a heated battle for quite some time, but kicked his ass, so I can say that. And I still think I have that little thing against on him, and he still to this day I think is bugging about that. But so that was that lasted until 2006, and left Wild not on my own, but my contract was up. I think they wanted to go in a different direction. That didn't end up working out so well for them for a few years after I left, but that wasn't my decision or my choice. And when I left in 2006, I got interviews all over the country. I was flown to Minneapolis, New Orleans, Kansas City, again, because program director said, this guy's dominated at Wild in Tampa. He's obviously got the mojo. We want to see if he can do for our station. But
we can get him at a lower rate he's younger.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And I said no, because nothing I was really close to going to Minneapolis, really close, but we just couldn't come to terms financially. And I was like, I'm not going to uproot my life in Florida to move to Minneapolis, the whole culture shock and everything, unless it's right, and it didn't feel right.
And it wasn't the cool Minneapolis it is now, really.
Right. No,
this is 20 years ago, so it's like
it was different. It was cold.
Yeah, it's just boring.
It was a different city.
It was
different.
not the liberal, like artsy kind of community. I mean, I'm sure it was there, but it's not like it is now.
No. Yeah. So, sure enough, Mark Gullett, who's the guy that hired me at Wild, was the vice president of marketing for the Lightning. And so as soon as I got let go, I reached out to Mark because, again, he saw me go from point A to point B and dominated when I was put into that role. And asked Mark, hey, is there anything over at the organization that would be a good fit for me? And he was like, no, not really, but I know your work ethic, would love to have you a part of the organization, so I'm going to put your resume on the top of my stack. So if anything comes aboard that I feel may be a good fit, I'll give you a shout. Sure enough, man, 3 months later, I get the phone call, and all he tells me is, wear a suit, and I need you to meet me at the game. And I said, what is this about? He goes, I can't talk about it. Just show up. Random.
Little leap of faith.
Random. Yeah. So I show up to the game, wear a suit. He comes and gets me, and all we did that night was observe. And so we watched everything that was happening on the plaza, and I didn't know, what am I supposed to be looking at? He really didn't tell me much. And so he just, I want you to observe. So I'm watching everything that's happening on the plaza, just kind of taking in the pregame vibes, and just kind of looking around the arena, the game day experience and all that. And so we go down to his office, and he says, what did you see tonight? And so I told him what I saw, and he goes, the guy that was out there on the mic, the host of the plaza, he goes, what'd you think of him? I said, I thought he was corny as hell. And he goes, well, not only was he corny, but he's just not getting it, what I need done. And so I'm like, well, what is that position? And he goes, he's a marketing coordinator. And he works for marketing, but he also handles all the execution of the game day elements on the plaza, interacting with sponsorships, just kind of being that host for the fans. And marketing for the Lightning back then was doing so much more. Obviously, the media buys, the premium item giveaways, doing a lot of bobbleheads and schedule magnets. They handled everything. And so, sure enough, he let that dude go and brought me aboard. And that was in 2006, and was a marketing coordinator, and that's exactly what I did. I took the helms of the plaza at the arena and handled all the game day operation stuff on the plaza as far as booking talent, the bands, the DJs, doing kids games, making sure that the plaza map was all laid out for all the sponsorship and stuff, which still goes on to this day.
Jesus Christ,
and
dude,
so
that's a fucking crazy job.
It was awesome though. I loved it.
Sure,
Now I'm in professional sports, and the 2006 to 2009 was a stressful time for the team because that's when things were changing. Ownership was changing hands, and but Mark really understood the marketing world. He was great at it, and we did some pretty amazing stuff. If you guys remember in 2008 when we got Stammer, we were the guys that created the Scene Stamkos campaign that completely took over this city. Billboards, T-shirts, like all of that, which had never really been done for an NHL player of that caliber, having not been in the league yet. Like people are like, who is this kid? Yeah. And it was an amazing campaign because looking where Stammer's at now, we look like geniuses back then. We did viral videos. Like we took Thunderbug, used to have the inflatable Thunderbug costume that was like 8 feet tall, and like a person would get in it, and it was like air blown, so like it was like wavy and just kind of crazy.
It's the mascot.
Yes. So we went out to the beach and terrorized spring breakers. Like you can go to YouTube right now and go to YouTube and type in mascot terrorizes spring breakers, and literally it is a video of him kicking sand on people, chasing little kids. It was hilarious.
That's awesome.
And so we put this up, put it on YouTube, and just naturally put it out. And we got a phone call from E! Entertainment Television.
Yeah. And
they said, hey, are you the guys that created this video? And we're like, why? Because we did it on the hush. And they said, well, we want to use this video for our E's wildest spring break moments.
Nice.
And in order for us to do that, we have to pay you. And so we're like, oh, yeah, sure, it's us.
That doesn't sound terrible.
Our boss, Mark, was like, wow, you're now making the team money because of the social media antics and things that you guys...
like, hey, why don't you
give us a little bit more.
You mean so, I'm making money from me doing this stuff, right?
It was awesome, man.
It goes through the team.
It does now, and we didn't get a cut of that. But the fact is that we were doing outside-the-box marketing ideas to draw attention to the organization. And during that time, from 2006 to 2009, because you're probably going to go, how did you become the host of the Lightning? There was two hosts back then for the Lightning. They had a girl, Jenny Dean, and they had this dude, Todd. And they would alternate games. I don't know what the arrangement was. And one game...
They were divorced.
They probably were. Todd was out of town.
They didn't want to see each other ever.
That's
how I visualize that.
Todd was...
I will not be there on Wednesday games, okay? He has Wednesdays.
And I got Thursdays.
Yeah.
Todd was out of town, and Jenny had a family emergency that day. And I heard my boss talking to the game ops guy in his office, talking about what the hell are we going to do? We're like an hour and a half from game time.
Right.
And so having the radio background, being in front of huge crowds, rocking concerts and all that, I peeked my head and said, Mark, I would love the opportunity to come in and host this game tonight.
Yeah. I would love to take
that opportunity.
Job right
so
now.
pretty much.
Yep.
So they said, we don't have a choice. And Greg is more than capable. So they said, all right, we're going to put you on headset and you're going to do what you do. And absolutely rocked it. I had a blast. Thought it was amazing to do that. And I became like the fill-in guy for a while. And then...
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
So how much did you know about hockey before you got in with the Lightning?
Very little. I'll be honest with you. I didn't really know a lot. I came from D.C., so like we were Caps fans.
So my thing is you absorbed a lot because you had to get to know...
Correct.
You had to get to know the company you were marketing for.
Absolutely.
And that
players.
involves getting, like, not only knowing the employees around the stadium, everything about the stadium, but how the game is
works.
played.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of marketing people or promotions people, they get in and it's just like, oh, no, it's just like any widget. You put it in and all.
Well, if you keep it in that box, that's where it's going to stay, right?
Correct.
So you absorb the game. You're like, I got to learn this. This isn't my strong suit.
Right.
I'm going to guess basketball because you're a hip-hop fan.
Right.
I'm going to say that Venn diagram's pretty almost overlapping one-to-one. But I'm saying, like, you had to absorb the game to be able to walk in.
Sure.
I talked about Ralphie May's rule, be prepared to be ready.
Yes.
So he had the 10 minutes, he had the 20, he had the hour ready to go if he ever had to go up anywhere.
Correct.
Same thing, same theory. You knew the game of hockey because you're like, fuck it, I got to learn this shit.
You absolutely have to.
Because I've never known when this is going to happen.
Who is Vinny LeCavier? And did I pronounce that correctly?
Right.
Like you absolutely had to absorb it. But since you're in it, it was easy to absorb it because you're around people that were extremely knowledgeable of that particular.
Sure, but I mean, I've gone to games. I know hockey, but I don't know it well enough. I don't think I could co-host a game off the
No, there's
jump.
no way.
I
No,
played
but the
NHL
good-
93
I don't know what
a
the hell.
lot, but-
I'll yell at the TV all day. I don't know what the hell icing is. I have no
Oh,
idea.
come on now.
I have no
Really?
idea. I'll
Really?
be done.
That
I
one's
don't know what it
easy.
is.
You need to learn the game. It's basically when you go and take the puck from your zone and you clear the puck and it hasn't touched a player or a stick or anything, and you're basically just trying to get it out. And when you get it out and it hasn't touched another player or a puck and it goes into their zone, if nobody else from your team or their team has touched it before that point, it's basically back to the other circle. And that's why you see it in the last minute of play. They're just flinging the puck down to try to clear it, to try to keep their lead. And they're like, all right, whistle blows, we're bringing it back to the zone.
Because it wastes a lot of time.
It does.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, you can learn about that on your own time.
That's what I'm saying. Play the video game.
Play the game, bro.
Get a Sega Genesis.
I don't
Get NHL
play
93.
video games, man. I do podcasts, brother.
That's
There you go.
true.
He's working.
This is our video game.
So recapping, so that's kind of how I got my foot in the door as host, and over the progression of time, the Todd guy left. Jenny went on to radio, and so I became the guy. And then I did that also for the Tampa Bay Storm, which is our arena football team here in Tampa as well, and did that pretty much the whole time I was there. The Lightning ownership changed, and Oren Coolez and Lynn Barry, who bought the team. Oren was actually the guy who's behind all the Saw movies and the whole Saw franchise.
Oh, yeah.
So we said, wow, these Hollywood guys are coming in. This was right when we did Scene Stamkos. This was right when we had viral videos on E! Entertainment Television. We're like, if anybody's going to understand, these guys are on it. This is the team. It was him. We're like, this guy's a Hollywood guy. He'll get it. The problem was all the stuff in the background that nobody knew about, the turmoil, the loans to the bank and all this stuff. That's before Vinnick bought the team. And the problem was because of their financial issues and the things that they had and the people that they were putting in positions, they blew all of us out.
Yeah.
And there was no reason. Like, some of us were good at what we did. Why are you getting rid of the in-game host? What did I do wrong? You know what I mean? And so, again, they wanted to do things their way. And they had a girl take over the hosting duties. And no disrespect to women out there, because women, you guys are amazing. However, in certain circumstances, like in an arena, women's vocals go up an octave, if you will, when you're trying to project. And everybody used to say it's like nails on a chalkboard hearing this girl call the game.
Right.
And I was like, well, that's their decision. That's what they want. And I stopped doing it. Now, mind you, I continued to do arena football because she didn't want to do that. And the Arena Football League folded for a few years.
Yeah.
But then it came back, and they continued to have me do it for then. But when Vinnick came in and bought the team and brought his people in, they listened to the fans. And the fans are like, what happened to Wolf? Why is he not doing games anymore? And I got a phone call after the ownership change, and they said, we'd love to have you back. And I said, I never wanted to go anywhere in the first place. And so I've been doing that ever since 2011, 2012 season. Then we had a lockout, so I got all excited. We're coming back, and there was a lockout. It's like, damn it, man. So since the lockout year, I've been back. It's been an amazing run so far.
Was that lockout the year after the Lightning won it?
There was that lockout, 2004, 2004, but then there was that one in 2011, 2012, and so
they had a shortened season, right?
It was a half. It was a little less than a half a season.
Yeah.
So came back, and we didn't have a good season that year. But ever since then, it's been an amazing
and
run.
the NHL was like, oh man, because they used to be one of the big four, and now it's kind of the big three. But hockey's kind of coming back a little bit.
In this city, it's
huge.
been back.
It
man.
It owns. I mean,
It's
besides
surprising.
the Bucks, it is the Lightning, and it's been an amazing run.
I think it's because
they
they have good AC.
They have
I think
AC.
seriously, this is one of my big theories about why it
works. No, you're absolutely right. It's
Look
air
at
conditioned. It's ice in the summer in Tampa.
What's that?
I was just wondering if the music was going to kick in. Here we go.
No, I got it.
Cool.
I got it set off to the side of
Okay,
here.
cool.
Beautiful.
So no, it's one of those things where how do you get Tampa Bay area is not a hockey. It's not a hockey city. There's not that many rinks.
It is
to
now,
play.
though. It is absolutely
but
now.
They're building
Well,
a new one right
it
off
is.
of
Here's my-
75.
Yeah.
And I'm putting my douchebag marketing hat on. It's my theory is, look, ladies control a lot of the plans guys make.
True.
So if ladies like to go
Absolutely.
on a date because
Yep.
it's AC, it's comfortable, it can kind of keep your attention no matter if you don't know the game or not.
Right.
If you go to a baseball game, you're like, oh my god,
hot.
kill me.
Right.
But
Hockey.
everything's nice in there. It smells good.
I mean, I think you're right, but I don't think that Vinnick was like, man, I want to buy a professional sports team. Like, what are the ladies going to want to go do?
Well,
I don't think that conversation happened.
Maybe
Maybe
it
it did.
I'll shit on this point a little bit because Vinnick he made that stadium the 6th most used stadium in the country.
Absolutely.
He had a utilization rate that no one else did, not the Hollywood guys, none of that.
Right.
A lot of it is a lot of big concerts, pop stars.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of ladies.
Amalie in one of the top arenas in the world, not just in the United States, in the world. It's
But
in the top 5.
they also do so many, and this is going a whole nother kind of place, but there's just so many surrounding areas to the metropolitan area of Tampa that it makes a large city.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know, when you branch out to Brandon, Riverview, when you go south of here, when you go, I mean, Sun City Center doesn't really count. So.
Queen Bay's about to start her tour.
Hey,
She'll
right
be
here.
in there pretty soon, I think, right?
Yeah.
Next Friday, actually, she'll be at Raymond James Stadium.
So rumor has it Jay-Z and
They're
Queen
here.
Bay
Are on Davis Island.
And
maybe in a house, renting it. I mean, why not? She's starting her tour in Florida. So
here's the thing that drives me crazy with this is that they are living in a house on Davis Island, all that kind of stuff, but why do we have to have news coverage
Who
on
cares?
it? Tampa's never going to be a cool city if we can't get people to rent houses on Davis Island.
correct.
And it drives me nuts. There was my fiance's sister was doing a lemonade, she was over at her friend's house, right, on Davis Island, and her little sister was doing a lemonade stand outside in their driveway. So Jay-Z and Beyonce come.
They're 27, by the way.
They're out walking.
Right.
It's an adult lemonade stand.
Yeah, they're out walking and they stop by and they buy some lemonade from him. And the dad comes in and he's like, yo, Beyonce and Jay-Z just straight up bought lemonade from us. And they're like, what?
That's awesome.
And Gabby's little sister, she's 12. And so she's like, oh my God. So she told Gabby the other night, and Gabby's like, don't say anything.
Right.
But like people aren't supposed to know. Well, I guess it got out.
It did.
And now it's like every news outlet is like, they're like have
Right.
cameras
they have
there.
paparazzi
and it's like,
and
no one's going to want to come here
Right.
if this is how it's going to be when they're so it's driving me nuts.
You act like the journalism has integrity. Like it's like,
Well, I
who
know,
can get
but-
this story out first because
But
it's
I'm
going
like-
to get a dickload of clicks. A
Yeah.
dickload.
No,
like
it-
girthy dickload. Like a lot. It's
It-
going to be...
Triumphant bastard.
Look, if it made its way to me and I try to avoid all that shit as much as possible, I
Yeah.
definitely saw these news reports. I
Right.
hate this kind of shit.
It's
Like,
ridiculous.
Well, as soon as Gabby's
why are they
known,
just staying with Derek Jeter?
Gabby's known for like 3 weeks now, and she's like, she told me, and she's like, don't tell your sister. Your sister's going to tell everybody. I'm like, all right, I won't tell her, because she knows everyone on the island and
Of
everything. So,
course.
and it's one of those things that you see it get out, and it's like it was only a matter of time until there's
Somebody-
news cameras there.
They're
and
not
there's
going
all
to
this
stay
crap.
here. Like their first,
Yeah.
it's Miami on the 27th and Tampa the 29th. Guess what? As soon as it's done, they're out of here because
Yeah.
they got their own houses to live at.
And
you
then
know?
they're going to be looking for Jeter's like baby
Whatever.
blue Lamborghini rolling around or
Well,
something. So
My thing is, like, for me, I see that as an opportunity for us because there's not a lot of news going on. Maybe there's a wedge to get in there because there's not shit going on here a lot of the time. That's a big news story.
maybe we're going to have Jay-Z on the podcast next. Who knows?
I'll have the fourth girl that got kicked out of Destiny's Child that we thought was the hottest, and
yeah,
we were kind of
she
wrong.
wasn't. No, she was terrible.
We didn't know how wrong we were.
So I want to jump back into it because I'm seeing I'm on Street Lace website
Yes,
right
let's
now.
talk about Street Lace.
And it seems that a lot of what I'm seeing on the website, it goes hand in hand with your stories, and it goes hand in hand with kind of the route that you've been, where a lot of the things that you've done in the past have been outside the box, have
Correct.
been grassroots efforts.
Correct.
It's been a and as it should be in my eyes, it's been a hustle. It's not, we don't sit back and just have this formula that we plug into a computer and we get you exposure.
No.
It's hard work.
Yes.
And we have the know-how. And if you could talk a little bit about what Street Laced does,
Sure.
and maybe just kind of your motivation to start Street Laced.
So Street Lace started when I was actually at Wild. I used to do a high school spirit contest called the High School Holla, and kids would call up Monday through Wednesday from 30. They had 30 minutes. Okay?
what was it called?
High School Holla, because remember Holla was like the big word, not Holla like the bread,
Yeah.
but
Oh.
Holla. You
I'm
know, like
thinking,
Ja
like,
Rule.
is
Ja
this
Rule
a-
had a Holla song. Holla,
Is this
Holla.
a Jewish community center?
It is. Holla. So the kids would call up for 30 minutes each day, Monday through Wednesday, and vote for their high school. The school that had the most votes on Thursday, we would crown them champ. And on Friday, we would go out to the school to blow out free stuff. The problem with that is, in radio, is going to your program director and say, hey, I'm going to go hit Largo High School on Friday. I need a box load of CDs and T-shirts. And we don't have that, Greg.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look like a douche going out to 1,500 students with a box of CDs. That's not going to fly. So there was a guy that I would see all the time in Tampa. His name was Blaze. And Blaze was, and that's his real name, not Blaze like, the American Gladiator, but
Just
Blaise.
Yeah.
So Blaze was a record rep for Atlantic, Virgin, Interscope, big labels. And he was the guy in the market that whenever Eminem's album came out, he would have to saturate the market with Eminem boards and like Eminem album in stores. He'd be in the club setting up tabletops. And So I would see this guy show up with all this stuff.
Yeah. I always wondered about that guy.
Yes.
You never see him.
You never see him, but he was like stealth, but the stuff would be all over the city. So he was that guy. And I would see him in the clubs, and I'm like, listen, man, how much product do you have? And he would show me like a van full of stuff. And I said, look, what do you have to give back to your superiors at the labels? What do you have to do, reports? And he said, absolutely. I said, isn't the target teens? I mean, they're the ones that are buying music.
Right.
He said, absolutely. I said, what if I told you that I could get you tons of pictures of kids holding your product, teenagers, that you could send back to your peeps, that I'm doing the work for you by getting it out to the masses. He's like, abso-freaking-lutely, dude. So that's what happened. Blaze would load me up with stuff. I had plenty of things to take out to these high schools and blow stuff out. So he became my number one ally.
Wow.
And so when I left Wild, he approached me and said, listen, because his full-time job was with Delta. So he told me
sounds like two different worlds.
It was two different worlds. I mean, but the good thing is, free airfare and flights and meetings and all that. So he told me, he said, listen, I'm getting kind of overwhelmed with all the workload I have. And since most of this job is relationships and DJs and networking, and you kind of have a stronghold on that, I could use your help. And the more we talked, I said, maybe I shouldn't work for you. Maybe we should start a legitimate marketing and promotions company together. But I'm only going to feel like I'm bringing something to the table because you already have 5 major record labels. Let me go get 5 more. And so I got some smaller labels because they saw the mold that we're doing for the biggers, and they said, yes, we would love that kind of marketing promotion. So I got 5 more. We had 10 labels, and that's all we did. We were the liaisons for these labels in the market to get their materials out, to do these in stores and all sorts of stuff like that. The problem is, as the music industry changed and everything started going digitally, the teams like ours got dismantled because unless you were a top 10 market, LA, New York, Chicago, Tampa not being a top 20, we were 22 at the time, they dismantled our team. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, well, what the hell are we going to do now? And what we did was we channeled those relationships and that knowledge of the radio business, of the music business, and we helped local artists. We guys that we felt had a buzz but they hadn't got over the hump yet.
Okay.
And we have the knowledge, the wherewithal, and the relationships to help you do a 6-week program with us, and this is what's going to happen. We're going to introduce you to the world and get your foot in the door in a bigger capacity that you can expand what you're trying to do.
And is this in the hip hop community
Yes.
still? So is this the Tom G's?
Tom G's,
Is
the
this
Aka Fools, the
Yeah.
Jay Shins. Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly what it was. And one of the things that we did was called a Power Hour dinner, and this is part of their package. And the reason why this works so well is DJs like to eat. They like to drink. So we're going to get the amount of time.
DJ Khaled.
Yes, big man. The farther the amount of time as an artist it will take them to go build a relationship with DJs, whether they're club DJs here in Ybor or strip club DJs or whatever, the amount of time it's going to take for you to take your single, go talk to DJ Kaz at the club, buy him a drink, let him listen to your music. He's DJing. He doesn't have time in the club to listen to your shit. So he's got to take that home. How are you going to get him to listen to your stuff? There's a whole lot of factors that go into that in order for you to build that relationship. That's one guy. What about the other 50?
Right.
So what we told the artist was we're going to get them all together at one time.
Yeah.
And what that's going to do is it allows us to give the platform. We're going to give you the platform to explain to the DJs why you need their help and how they can help you. Mm-hmm. Not only that, now that you have them in one spot and they're fed, they're happy, they're drinking, they're happy, you have the opportunity to go to each one of them now, get their contact info, their email address. Let me get your phone number. You have the opportunity to network, but it's up to you to do the work. We're going to give you the outlet, and then it's up to you to take the ball and run with it.
It sounds like you guys already did all the work.
We
by setting
did
this thing up,
as
man.
far as assimilating that, yes.
Yeah.
But a lot of these guys took it to heart, and they did just that. They went and talked to each one of them, got all their info. They started doing mixtapes with these DJs, and like some of them got major record radio or airplay from those experiences. Yeah. So that's kind of how Street Laced formed. While we were doing that,
what year is that around?
This was 2007, 2008.
Okay.
While we're doing that, we get a phone call from Live Nation. And Dave Harb, who runs the amphitheater here in Tampa, said, listen, you guys have a promo team, right? We said, sure. He goes, I need you guys to staff every concert event that I have at the arena. We're like, dude, that's a lot of shows.
Live Nation's
huge.
Like the biggest.
Yes.
They might be the biggest kind of event.
Concert promoters, yes, putting on of shows, if you will. And we're like, well, what do you mean you need us for every show? He goes, okay, I'll give you an example. Tim McGraw's playing this Friday. I need to promote Brad Paisley coming in a few weeks. So I need your team inside the gates as people are coming in to hand out materials to promote my next show. And we're like, well, typically, why are you doing that as people come in? Typically, you do that as people are exiting. So they take the flyer, put it in their car, and he goes, but my philosophy is, as people are coming in, they're excited. They're happy to be there. They want things. Like, they want you to hand them. So that was his philosophy. But our mindset was, well, they're going to take that and throw it in the trash. Like,
right.
They're not going to hold on to that.
Right. But so for a while, it worked. But then he got tired of having to pay cleanup crews to pick up all the friggin' flyers that are all over the ground inside the gates.
That he also already paid for.
Which he also already paid for, and you paid our team to staff this. So what he ended up doing was transitioning that to go, you know what, I want these flyers out into the public. I want them at bars. I want them at barbershops. I want them at pool halls. So our team started going out and doing the grassroots in the market.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, that led to us taking over the Live Nation account. And at that time, I was in the door at the arena because I'm still with the Lightning. And I went to the event coordinator who handles all the events for the at the time was the St. Pete Times Forum, and said, who do you guys use for like your flyering, your grassroots? And they told us, and we said, listen, how do you know this guy that you're hiring doesn't take your flyers, throw them in the trash, and say, give me my check?
The old newspaper joke with Mitch Hedberg.
Yep. So they said, well, we've been using them for years. I said, what if I told you that not only will my team give you photos of your stuff and this is before digital and social media. We literally had, again, disposable cameras.
Yeah.
When we make our teams go out, when they put the materials in the locations, they would take a picture of it in the location and a picture of the storefront. So this is where your stuff is at. Not only are we going to give you pictures, but we're going to give you a location recap of where all your stuff is at. And we're going to do it for $50 less than your guy does. Done. So we took over the account for the arena. We now had Live Nation. Guess what? Live Nation's getting a phone call from Ruth Eckerd Hall. Who do you guys use for your grassroots? We use Street Lace. Done. Took over that account. Straz Center, AEG Live. And to this day, we still have all of these accounts.
And I'll tell you what, all right, that first time around, I bet it sucked.
It sucked.
It sucked ass.
Today,
everything you do the first time
sucks.
I'm trying to write a bit about this, but everything you do for the first time sucks. Even a BJ the first time around isn't all
awkward.
Because it's always like,
what is it?
Oh, do I tap her on the shoulder? What do I do? Like, so everything you do the first time is horrible. Usually, it's horrid, especially in business where I'm realizing this as well. And what I do is I keep a playbook on the side.
Sure.
Because I know I don't want to have to go back on the fly and figure this out. I want to have a social media marketing plan for another restaurant once I get my bearings on what I'm doing with this one.
Absolutely.
And I have this templated out. That first time sucks.
It does.
But once you do it, and this is, you got to remember and I'm pointing at you, but I'm really telling people that are listening, the nature of the game is they don't want to have to keep rehiring people.
Correct.
You got to think of how managers hire people or how you outsource a lot of work.
Right.
If you do it well and they're excited, and that's part of the experience of making that account is it sounds like what you did, what I call internally marketing.
Correct.
Where I'll have a retainer with someone and I'll be like, look, isn't this how great it is that I know all this stuff to show y'all? And I keep reminding them, hey, there's a lot of value in this. I know I have a rate like an attorney, but
there's a reason for it.
Yeah, you're paying for the knowledge at the same time, which is never in your hours. So when I would tell them, I keep internally marketing. It sounds like you do the same thing where, on the exit you go, hey, look how great this is.
Correct.
We added value by having these pictures.
And I think that it shows on the website. If you guys that are listening, head over to streetlaced.com and click on the testimonials link.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking big names.
Go ahead, read the one from Feld. Feld Entertainment, which is
Feld Entertainment
Disney on Ice. That's
huge.
Monster Jam. That's the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus. But I think the quote from Chris Rosbach on Feld is fantastic.
It's huge. Definitely. I'm not good at reading aloud, so I'm going to let them do that on their time. But it's, guys, of course, the Lightning, iHeartMedia, iHeartRadio, Ruth Eckerd Hall. It goes on and on. IMG, AEG. It's just the names on this are huge, and these aren't just one sentence. Man, we love working with Greg, or Street Lace is great. These are paragraphs that
are from people who are in an industry, an entertainment industry that understand. They have deadlines, they have results that they have to accomplish, they have things that they have to do, and they have expectations, and we by far exceed their expectations every time. So that's kind of how Street Lace started. Our DJ network is also something we pride ourselves on, and again, the reason why our DJ network is so phenomenal is, again, having been in the industry for so long, we would hear these DJs get frustrated, especially guys that worked here in Ybor City, that at the end of the night, they would have to wait until the bar manager or the owner would check out, the barbacks, the bar girl, the security officers. Why are you paying all these guys first before you're paying your DJ? Because if your DJ wasn't here, you would not have your patrons having a good time, continually drinking and feeding your wallet. You need to pay these guys first and let them go home to their families. And these guys were getting frustrated having to wait till 4 in the morning to get their money. And so we said, listen, what if we step in and we get your money for you?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what do you mean? You literally show up to the club, you play, you leave. We'll get your money.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, how are you going to do that? Don't worry about it. We want a percentage. We're going to get a cut of this for our time and our effort. But is it worth it for you to not have to deal with the bullshit of the club owners, making you wait until 4:30 in the morning to get your money?
Because what time are they done with their set?
3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, obviously, so by the time the
at
bar
that point,
closes,
you're gassed,
you're
man.
Tired. You just want to go home.
Yeah.
Can y'all do this for comedians?
I would love to, man.
Yeah, right.
We may add a
Do you wanna
comedian
make-
roster. Sure, man.
Do you want to get 0% of zero?
No. So we listened to these guys, and we started getting their money for them, and networking, and getting with the relationships, and the guys that we have on our roster, as you see, they're all major affiliated radio guys, or they have a major entertainment affiliation. We literally have the best of the best DJs,
and
in
it's
Tampa.
expansive too. It's not 3 or 4 guys.
No,
I mean,
it's
we're talking
20 plus,
Yeah,
and we only add guys that we feel bring something to the table. We have a 13-year-old DJ on our roster, DJ Jake De La Cruz.
I've seen him around town.
Jake
man.
is very well entrenched. He's created a niche for himself. He's on Evolution Radio, which is on FLZ, which is an EDM station. He's done a great job for himself, and he's a talented kid. So we have very specific reasons why we brought these guys to the table. In our DJ network now, we provide all the entertainment for the DJs, again, at Amalie Arena, on the Bud Light Party Deck, on the pregame stuff. We're the official entertainment provider of the IMG Academy in Sarasota. We do a lot of charity events, and again, it's about that saturating the market with our brand, and it's really the people behind it. And we've done a really great job of getting ourselves out there, because now, again, taking the mold of the hip-hop world and putting that to major business. Again, grassroots is not rocket science. It is literally going away from the traditional media of social media and all these things. Everything's gone digital. Well, guess what? We have learned that the conversation and the hand-to-hand and the face-to-face interaction will always go a lot farther than you seeing an ad on a feed on your Snapchat or your Instagram. You're scrolling right past that. But
no question, yeah.
Not if I do it, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
If I have a 5-second or 20-second conversation with you about an event, or I hand you something, and you remember that, you're going to remember that 1,000 times more than you are some ad that's in your Facebook feed. And that method is still used to this day, and it works for us. It works for our clients. You can go to the latest on our tab. We're working with lawyers now and food trucks, and we're coming up with great ways to get these guys new business. And so that's kind of the mold that we put together is coming from a hip-hop world and coming from things that we know have worked and still work to this day. So that's kind of what Street Lace is about. Me and my partner, we've been together for over 10 years now. The company has been in business for over 10 years. And the reason why I chose to leave the radio world was because corporations, and it sucks to say this because I loved my 20 years in radio here in Tampa, but at the end of the day, you're just a number to them.
Yeah.
And the people that have made it up the ladder, so to speak, for whatever reasons, they've networked within that world. But I just felt like the opportunities, I've done pretty much what I could do. I mean, I did the radio thing, dominated it on air, did the behind the scenes thing as promotions director for 3 of the properties here in Tampa for over 6 years, did the behind the scenes thing. And it just got to the point where I felt like there was really nothing left for me to do. And now that I have a great company, I've created a brand, we've gotten ourselves out there for the last 10 years, it's now time to focus 100% on us. And it's scary to go from a corporate job where you got a paycheck every week, you got benefits and 401k. It's a scary jump to say, I'm leaving that world behind and I'm doing this for myself.
Yeah.
But again, going back to, like you said, where this all started back on the AM station, you're not going to let yourself fail. If you're a go-getter, you're a hustler, you understand what it takes, that's what you need to apply to yourself, and that's what you need to apply to your business. And so that's what we've done. I feel like we've just really started scratching the surface of what our capabilities are.
And I'll be honest with you, from an outsider looking in, I feel like a lot of people might not know about Street Laced unless they're looking for it.
Correct.
And the first time I saw it was probably a few months back. So, and it was one of those things where I was like, oh, what is, Greg's doing this? Like, damn, this is pretty cool.
Yep.
So I feel like with this new push of you being in, and I wouldn't call it a new endeavor because it's been around for 10 years now, but giving it your full attention now.
Yes.
I think a lot more people are going to start seeing street laced around, and it's going to be a more common kind of name for people.
We've done a great job. Like we did all the Frozen 4 stuff here a couple weeks ago with the NCAA. That's another big client of ours is the Tampa Bay Sports Commission. Thanks to Rob Higgins, we've got a great relationship with them, and obviously the National College Football Championship is in Tampa this year.
It's going to be huge.
So
I'll be at that for sure.
It's going to be, dude. There's going to be so many amazing events in the city, and putting our best foot forward for the Frozen 4, which was the third most attended Frozen 4 in its 69-year history.
Wow.
All the events surrounding that, we did everything. We did the student welcome reception at the Getaway, which was a private event. We did the student autograph sessions, which were at Tampa Theater before the Hobie Baker Award. The Hobie Baker Award is for the best collegiate athlete in the entire
I know.
country.
Caleb, say for Caleb.
Yes.
I'm still trying to figure out icing. I'm like, what flavor? What?
We've done great stuff with the Sports Commission, and that was obviously to plant the seeds to be able to be involved in the National College Football Championship. I hosted the event. I did the women's Final Four as a host last year, and the relationships we're building now with the NCAA and the sporting world, that's going to continue on.
It's funny, like I get a lot of shit for doing a lot of different things, and I go, no, it all kind of helps, and you don't realize it. You haven't lost a step as far as hosting anything. I mean,
right.
If anything, you've been the easiest guest we've ever had on because you've been in the room where you've had to basically have a conversation, but you're in a room by yourself.
Correct.
So I can tell you that muscle's there, but it's like someone was like, "Hey, can you go step in because this person bailed last second to host this thing?" You're like,
sure.
"Yeah, whatever. I already got 10,000 hours on this. Yeah, right. I can get in there
easy."
So you haven't lost a step in that way. It doesn't mean that you won't get back into radio at some point if that fragments out.
Sure.
Which
you never know.
Which is a normal cycle of any industry where it condenses to like the collusion period where it's at right now.
Yep.
And then it's going to start fragmenting out. Maybe podcasting is kind of that area.
Maybe.
But, I guess we could talk to you for definitely
hours.
A long time.
Sure.
I want to make
stories.
sure. We'll have you back for sure.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
We want to make sure we, I guess we try to, this is supposed to be realistic advice for a lot of people that are listening, are either entrepreneurs that are a little lonely, isolated, and kind of need to. I tell people a lot of my consulting stuff is like being a personal trainer. It's basically the entrepreneurial game is very isolating. You're by yourself a lot of the time. You have to make all the decisions, but you got to look like you know everything you're doing. So
true story.
A lot of my job is literally just talking to the small business owners or startups and stuff and telling them they're not crazy or they are crazy. Like this is a good idea, this is a bad idea. Use your moral compass in a lot of ways. Or you're a professional, someone that is working that office job, has ideas that want to do something else, and how do I start that up? I guess that's the two audiences we kind of have right now.
Sure.
So we want to do like realistic advice. What's good realistic advice to give? And it could be, I'm more interested in the thing you're like, I get up and I, slam out 100 push-ups every morning or something like that. Something that gets you going. Very simple, pragmatic. The answers are simple, but they're not easy.
Right.
So
I think at the end of the day, you have to believe in what you're doing. You have to believe in yourself, and you can't let anything stop you or deter you from following through on what you know you're capable of doing.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, life is short, and you need to do what makes you happy. If you're passionate about something, why are you going to let anything get in your way of completing that goal or that task or whatever your dream is? There's going to be bumps along the way. You're going to fail at certain things. Not everything is going to come easy. Nobody made it into the NFL or the NBA by not putting in hard work. I mean, they had a dream and they fulfilled that dream. You're going to get knocked down, but you got to get back up. And at Chumbawamba, a great song. Not really. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's really, you have to believe in yourself. You're your own brand at the end of the day, and you have to be able to find ways to Do whatever it takes. You have to utilize your resources and pull from your resources and your friends and people that your connections and the things that you have around you. That's where you pull from.
Yeah.
And that's how you build the blocks, the foundation to get you to where you need to get to.
The douchey term is social capital. Yeah.
It is, and I mean,
it is what it is.
It is.
Look, we don't do a lot of marketing. And we do marketing for other people,
right?
And I need to follow our own advice in a lot of ways. But we've been relying on social capital, and I know that is not a good plan.
In the long run,
because
it's going to change. It's always changing,
right? So we always need to keep pulling in new business,
right?
And we can't just rely on the connections we've had in this area just by not being douchebags in this area for a while, like that. So social capital just sounds douchey. It's like someone tells me you have EQ, which is like emotional quotient, your emotional intelligence, essentially. Is like, yeah, okay, but you can just say I can listen to people. That's all.
Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah,
call it what it is.
So that is good advice, and you got a lot of grit. I think that's the thing to take away for a lot of people listening is, you don't. It sounds like you do what I do, where you go, yeah, I'll do that. What do you need? Okay, and then you walk out of the room and you go, all right, I got to reverse engineer this plan.
Right.
Like I got to figure this
Done
thing
deal.
out. Yeah, I'll tell anybody like, yeah, we'll get it done, and then I'll walk out and go, oh fuck, all right, I got to really call some people up. So,
but that's good because then it challenges you to go, okay, maybe I didn't have how this was going to be done or executed in that fashion, but then it forces you to think, and that's where you start pulling from those resources and start thinking about, well, we did this one time. I wonder if we could take some of those, factors and put that to this. And the same thing with grassroots. Not everything's going to be a home run, but if you pull from things that have worked in the past or you think are going to work now in today's market, then you try them. And if they work, great. If they don't, then you go back to the drawing board.
And I think the most important thing that happens that I don't think it happens all the time, but it actually gets done.
It does.
Because there's so many people that say, yeah, we'll do that. And the deadline comes around and it's, hey, just the night before they shoot that email out. Hey, just wanted to give you a heads up. Gonna need a little more time. It's like, dude, you can either do it or you can't.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the people that walk out of that room and they say, shit, I got to come up with something here. But that next step after you say that is the most important step of the whole process.
Right.
And that's what leads to getting it done. And I don't know. I think that's a big difference. That people either have that or they don't. I think people can develop it.
They can, but it's
I think
not really taught.
That's a tough process to develop that. So I want to thank you. I think that's
it's been awesome, man. I appreciate you guys.
The advice you've been able to give, the stories you've been able to share are if our listeners didn't gain something from this episode, then that's their own damn fault. So
sorry for you guys.
Where can people find Street Laced? Where can people find you?
Streetlaced.com is our main source. You can actually get to our socials from the website, but we actually switched it up. Like on Twitter, it's Street Laced DJs because obviously we're promoting most of our DJ stuff on Twitter. So our Twitter is Street Laced DJs. Our Instagram is Street Laced Promo, and our Facebook is Street Laced Marketing. We kind of switched them up. We didn't go with the same thing for each one because each element is different.
A little different reach for each platform.
There you go. So streetlaced.com, though, is where you can see all of our stuff. You can see if you click the latest tab, that's where you can see all the most latest things that we've been doing. Like you said, the portfolio and the testimonials. I mean, the testimonials alone, like you said, are extremely valuable to us because they are from some major players in the entertainment world. So it's been a great ride, but I really just feel like we're just beginning, man.
That's
I really
awesome.
do. So thank you guys for having me. I would love to come back and host with you guys.
For
again
sure,
soon.
man.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
We'll
All
make it
right.
happen.
Sweat Equity Podcast. Tell a friend, tell a loved one, tell your mom. Tell her what a podcast is. She
Mother's
probably
Day
doesn't
is
know.
coming up. Give
It
her a
is.
Sweat Equity episode.
Just
May
say,
8th.
hey, Mom, you want to get that Etsy store off the ground? Let's do this shit.
Do it.
Right? Listen to this podcast. It's like radio, but it's on demand. You got to go through iTunes. That's how you got to pitch it to her.
That's right.
That's all I tell people.
It's
So
easy.
I appreciate you coming on, and
Thank you,
we'll
guys.
definitely have you back.
Rock and roll.
Peace.